All right. Welcome to another episode of the LinkedIn podcast. I'm Jeremy Diouf,
I'm
founder and
James Mason.
director of Diouf Media. And this is James. Oh, we jumped right to it. This is James, my colleague, James Mason. Amazing LinkedIn experts. We're both pretty experienced LinkedIn experts. And today we're going to talk about how to nurture leads and stay top of mind because that is such a critical aspect of the marketing process. A lot of people just send two follow-up messages and they just follow up with words instead of dynamically with different, assets and things like that. That's a huge mistake. So we're going to demystify the art of staying top of mind and nurturing. James, I'll
Totally.
turn it over to you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, exactly what Jeremy said. You would have thought by that intro we haven't done this before, but I can assure you
Yeah,
we have.
we have. Yeah.
But with this, really the goal is how different the platforms are, in my opinion. I mean,
Yep.
nurturing on LinkedIn has its own sort of style and techniques, and there's all these different extra things that you can do to stay top of mind on LinkedIn. But they're a lot more subtle. Where with something like email, you can be a little bit more aggressive. You can be a lot more frequent with your options and sort of touch points as well. And yeah, just kind of breaking down that whole space and kind of mapping it out for people would be great for them to hear just
Yeah.
what we do and what works.
Yeah. I like what you said there. It's almost like LinkedIn's like the dinner party.
Yeah,
Whereas, email, it's kind of like, I don't know, like a group of friends just at a regular restaurant, like just talking.
yeah,
Whereas it's like it's a different vibe. Like people are still optimizing for the same thing, consuming food and the aspect of LinkedIn, getting clients, sure. But the way you go about it is very different in the two approaches, kind of. If that
totally.
analogy makes sense to
Yeah,
our
no, it makes it.
listeners.
You know what? It makes perfect sense even to me. I mean, I was just
Yeah,
thinking there. It's you don't shake people's hand and try and sell them straight away, right?
yeah,
But with email, that's more common than not,
it's more
right?
common. Yeah,
You
they're
grab a lead.
expecting it actually. Like,
Yeah,
can you
exactly.
can you talk about your really quick? I think it'd be great for you to maybe later in the episode if you want, but you can bring it up now. The cold email thing we just talked about relates to how people respond to it. Like, hey, can
Yeah,
I speak with you? Kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what Jeremy's speaking about here is we do a lot of stuff where, and throughout this episode, we'll speak about how people discover you for what you do. And there's many ways of doing that. We love LinkedIn, of course, but we also utilize cold email at scale because LinkedIn doesn't give you those opportunities. It's very strict with people discovering you. Now, because of that, with cold email, with the right type of approach, you can actually skip all of the steps of discovery, which we're about to showcase, but you actually can skip with all the different steps if you just catch someone in the right time.
Yeah.
And you get to see these patterns when you're doing things at such a scale. And what Jeremy's referencing there is we do some lead magnets where we invite people to webinars, much like what you're watching, but sometimes you just catch them on the right day at the right minute, and they don't even want to watch the episode. They just want to know how you can help. And it's really interesting to hear how that does shift. Now, just as a bit of insight, Jeremy, I actually think the podcast term is what gets us over that hurdle a little bit better. I think
Absolutely.
when someone runs a podcast, it's a little bit more authoritative than just I'd like to invite you to a webinar.
The
And
webinar. Yeah.
webinars feel like you're being sold to, and I think podcasts feel like you might learn something. They're the exact same piece of value in our case, but that isn't the case for everybody, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So with this, I kind of want to jump straight in, Jeremy, into the sort of hub of discovery that we always
Mhm.
like to kind of speak about, and that's really how people find you and kind of hear about what you do. So whether you're running paid ads, whether you're doing cold email, whether they find you from a post on LinkedIn, it
Mhm.
all starts somewhere, but you need to take them through a journey. So let's jump straight into that, Jeremy.
For sure.
Do you want to lead this one?
Yep, I got it.
And
So LinkedIn webinar sales cycle. So here we're going to just break down the power of a link of a given webinar or a given podcast on LinkedIn and the journey it brings people through when they first hear about you. So first, people tend to, let me just enlarge my screen a little bit. People tend to discover insights. So when somebody learns something, especially something they care about, something they didn't know before, their ears perk up and they get this aha moment, and then also that insight gets connected to the person they hear it from. So that brings so much trust because this is a piece of information that can help them a lot, and you're the person that they don't know yet, but you're the person that delivered it. So they start to make kind of these assumptions of, well, this person can help me further. This person is very knowledgeable, which is probably true. Um, but the rate at which they got to that point was faster because of the insights you delivered, essentially.
Totally. I
So
mean,
that's what I was saying about that.
just to piggyback off that, Jeremy, especially on the sense of discovery, and then all of this really, the reason why we use webinars as our preferred process is they get to experience a lot from someone that they did not know beforehand. So, and there's a real hidden secret behind why we use them, and we'll share a bit of that in just a moment. But the kind of goal here is, and we've said this all along, Jeremy, is that we never work with people that don't know us. Right.
Yeah.
For instance, you have to go through a relationship building process with every single person that considers working with you. And I could actually name a handful of times where someone's just, been given just a referral and they've bought. Now that's super rare, but you imagine how good of a referral it'd have to be to shortcut the process of getting to know each other. So, and the reason why we like the webinars is it kind of gets a little bit of insight to who we are, what we do, and ultimately how we can help. But really, it's they're discovering you for what you do and how you're presenting yourself. Now, when you do something like a webinar, it's very out there. It's not everyone's style for sure, but it immediately puts you as an authority and a public speaker on LinkedIn, which is, in my opinion, probably the highest authority you can get, let alone when you get the social proof that's connected to hundreds of people or even thousands of people joining these webinars at the same time. So if you imagine you get bumped into me into LinkedIn, or I end up on your feed, or my webinar ends up on your feed, and I've got 16,000 people supporting my event, you immediately don't question whether if I know what I'm doing, how many years have I been in this space. None of those questions exist. You just simply see what it's about and if it's of interest to you.
Yeah, it
Now,
allows you to build authority cues. So that's definitely big.
absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. And then, of course, engaging with them. Now, what our webinars allow you to do is build a webinar, and this is kind of the two approaches we normally take is either you build to have an impact on the platform, you want to be an authority in your industry, or you build an event for a specific niche, which is something me and Jeremy are actually doing with the podcast itself. There will be a couple episodes that no doubt people will see that may not be for your industry. But of course, we're testing exactly what we preach by doing this exact cycle publicly.
Exactly. Yeah. Engaging with prospects is a key feature of this podcast / webinar style of things, because obviously if you run a live webinar directly on LinkedIn, you can answer questions live and things like that. But also there's a aspect where you can pre-record a webinar, post it on LinkedIn, and then interact with people in the comments section. Or, you could have it where you are live directly and you have a team member in the comments replying to people, answering questions, things like that. And when people get these answers to their questions, they're speaking to you directly. They see your personality, they're getting these insights. It's just another added layer of what will lead them to wanting to work with you even closer. I like what you brought up, James, about the kind of the specific ICP type of webinars, like the ones we're testing out.
Yeah.
That's important too, because when you're speaking to a specific industry, there are specific pain points, specific
Absolutely.
ways to solve problems that a bunch of other people outside of it won't understand.
Totally.
So if you can make those specific webinars and those specific live events, it can go a long way too.
Absolutely. I mean, just to share with you, share with the audience as well, a live case study that's just finished, and we'll be, of course, sharing this with everybody here soon. But a customer of ours just did a very, very, very niche event for only 30 people. Okay. When they went live, 17 of them turned up, which was
Nice.
they were very happy
Pretty
with.
good.
And
Yeah.
three of them have become customers, and 8 of them booked calls.
Nice.
Right. So, and that's within 24 hours. So even though, we speak about these webinars being very large in scale, making a big impact, becoming authorities, that isn't for everyone. If you're just looking to generate genuine leads for people that are genuinely interested in how you might help, you can do that. It's just done in a very different way, in a very unique way to that industry. And as you can imagine, for the people on the other end, if an event's made for them, why wouldn't they join if they feel it could be of value to them? And that's kind of the goal that we look to explore that. Yep. So moving on to the next sort of thing, exploring the topics. Well, much like you can see with our own webinar process or this LinkedIn podcast, we share so many different subjects, so many different approaches, and we're always testing and putting out different styles of podcasts just to gauge and engage really with other prospects, right? Yep. We have a webinar right now, which is on personal branding, and that one's kind of going out to more self-employed or smaller teams with maybe 1 to 10 employees. Well, of course that makes sense, but we have other webinars where they appeal to much larger. So it's the combination and exploring all these different subjects is how you get known in your industry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the name of the game with marketing too. It's testing. It's trying different things and obviously looking at, what are the numbers showing you? Like for in our case, in a live event example, how many people are showing up? How many people are engaging? How many people maybe reached out to you, or how many people opted into your lead magnet at the end or booked a call with you? So you look at these various metrics and then you keep testing, and obviously keep educating as you're doing that. Like James and I, we love doing these different topics and seeing, okay, this resonated with people. This topic's more for a general audience. This other topic's more for a niche audience. Maybe the information is more technical. And then right here, it's like for this very specific industry that we want to focus on. And then we look at those numbers. What's the turnout? Who booked a call? Things like that. And we basically go from there. And on the consumer side of things, the business owner that's watching us, they're gaining valuable information, valuable knowledge. Again, that basically gets them more familiar with us, and we build our authority even more.
Totally. I mean, just something to throw out there as well is, lead cycle is a real thing. And obviously we're speaking about nurturing them. Not everyone's ready to buy today. And we had this funny chat just back in January where people were coming out from the woodworks that we had spoke to literally together from a year before. We thought, we got off the call going, oh, they'd absolutely buy. Yeah. And then crickets, didn't hear from them for 12 months. And then it's like, oh, now's the right time. So, it's just part of the process with any form of marketing is you have to remember your prospects, need to be convinced. They might be convinced on you, but it might be other factors before they look to purchase and give it a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on, obviously, with webinars on LinkedIn or LinkedIn events, the whole platform is built on networking. So we look to use this to not only our advantage, but of course, our customers' advantage. One of the things that happens with webinars on LinkedIn is when you join our webinars, it shares it to your entire network and it continues to spiral without people realizing. So that is really kind of a piece of content if you consider that we put the effort in once to record or to go live, and everyone gets to see it. But we promote these ahead of time, so we get hundreds of people in, hundreds of interested people, and they then get presented a live webinar or live event such like this, and they get to kind of move further down the funnel, get to know me and Jeremy, and of course it works really well for building our networks as well. All does a combination of everything at once, which is why we need them so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, this topic is important because with content, it's part of the system to get clients, but it can do so much more where you essentially are being known by people in your industry as well. And it builds this thing where, and I've had this happen where people in your industry reach out and they say, hey, I do this, and you end up collaborating. I've had that happen multiple times, all because they've seen a piece of content of mine. Or I'm talking to another, client acquisition expert, and we're talking about content, how often we post, and there's that collaboration. So it's like this very well-rounded system where, yes, it's a system to get clients and customers. It's a system to get attention, which is important, but it's also a system to have potential collaborations with people in your industry, and also even get team members that are a great fit for you as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Like I can't overstate just how powerful webinars, podcasts, live events are.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to say as well, I mean, I've made plenty of team hires from people that have found the webinar. Like they'll say, hey, love what you have to speak about, love to maybe help you and your team. okay, let's have a chat. Like, I love the idea of them coming through and seeing the process. And that's something that we're massive about with getting customers, right? Is we do the things we sell. So, and because of that, we know it like the back of our hand, and it keeps us in the game where, you know, a lot of other agencies out there, they don't actually even do what they sell, right? And that kind of maybe showcases you, you know, potentially whether it works for them or not internally. And you know, I'm a big believer, if you can't make your processes work for you internally, you probably can't do it externally for other brands.
Yeah,
right?
you should be your first case study essentially
Couldn't
when it
agree
comes
more.
to things. So yeah.
Yeah, what a great way of wording it. That's a newsletter post coming up next week.
Right there. Yeah.
So just to move on here with the fostering of relationships, much like you know, really the whole process, as you can see, if someone discovers you for what they do, they've seen how you speak and showcase your level of work, they've seen some of your content and the other topics that you speak on in the build up to that webinar, and then of course they see the quality of people you've brought in and even benefited them by networking, because we're always about we always hear stories about people adding each other and exploring other opportunities, right? That all builds the relationship for you to potentially work with them. And that, I can't tell you how important that is. And there is some ways of kind of shortcutting it and kind of making it improve, but really you can't speed up the process of building trust. And that's really what it is. And the quicker and the more you put out there, the quicker people do that externally. I find that when someone actually takes the opportunity to book a call, that's where the most of it happens. But there's so many elements that goes into making people feel comfortable enough to where they're not going to just get sales pitched on a call, right? No one really likes that feeling. No one likes to be sold to. And we just find that this webinar process is a fantastic way of getting out there.
Yeah, very, very well said. And with this topic, I always go back to the question of, you know, why would a family member or a close friend of yours, like if they need your service, why would they just buy it so fast? But the reason why is because there's a relationship there. Now, granted, of course, they know about the service, they're educated on it, but the sales cycle is so much shorter with friends and family, for example, because they have a relationship with you. There's a trust there. They know you. So LinkedIn Live events is just doing that in a digital format where you're building relationships with different people through time by educating them, by showing your personality, maybe talking about your services a little bit, giving some case studies, and you just essentially go from there. So that's the power of relationship building.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, so really that's kind of, you know, our suggested LinkedIn approach, isn't it, to how to be discovered on LinkedIn. And that works great by cold email as well. I know we touched on that very briefly, but having that free way of outreaching where it's just purely valuable, you're just gauging their interest in your space, and joining a free event is very, very easy. Again, a friendly reminder, when they join, they do hand over their email. So you do generate leads from these from these LinkedIn webinars. And that's one of the reasons why we run them. Now,
as long as it's a business page. The business page.
Exactly. Yeah. So it has to be from your company page, and that's the only reason to really have a company page at this time, and maybe even a company newsletter. But again, another topic for another day. Now, once we've found your route of discovery, and again, you could be more into content. You could be, you could get discovered on YouTube. It doesn't have to be this version of LinkedIn, but again, we can't recommend it enough because it is by far the best right now. But really, we want to talk about how we nurture these people. They've found you. They've been through one experience with you. Maybe they joined live. Maybe they watched the replay. What are the next steps for keeping top of mind, bringing them further down the funnel, and ultimately turning them into customers? Now, with this process, there is so many elements. We could do, well, quite literally, Jeremy, we have done episodes on each part of this, and we will continue to do plenty of episodes on each independent sort of subject within this. Really, it comes down to being of more value. Now, I always like to remind my customers that have been on LinkedIn for a long time, and Jeremy, you might even find this funny, but you can probably remember the last person that impressed you on LinkedIn. I can almost assure you remember the last message you closed because someone tried to sell you something, but can you remember the last time someone genuinely impressed you on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Okay.
It's very rare. So when
Yeah.
I ask that to a lot of customers, a lot of the time they go, you know what, James, I don't remember one. And really, that's the difference maker with LinkedIn. Email, which we'll get to in a moment, is completely separate to that. They get
Yeah.
to know you a little bit more. You can be a lot more aggressive on LinkedIn. Sorry, on email.
Email.
But with something like a LinkedIn newsletter, I find to get that to grow and grow quickly, it needs to be of value always. So even if you're posting the same pieces of value just with a different context, that's fine, but it can't be salesy there. It just needs to feel like value again and again and again, and kind of using that value ladder technique that we've spoken so many times about.
Exactly.
That approach works great for sort of growing a newsletter there.
Absolutely. Yeah. LinkedIn newsletters. I kind of posted about this in my recent LinkedIn newsletter about how I got to about 200 subscribers in under 3 weeks. It's because I post value, but also LinkedIn shares that, and it kind of nurtures for you in a way, kind of more on an automated sense. So your network gets emails related to you just posting. You even get your own email about you posting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people get notifications about you posting. And then this is what attracts people. And somebody that maybe hopped on a call with you 6 months ago, somebody that spoke to you in the DMs 4 months ago, they get this
Yeah.
notification. They're like, "Oh, this name looks familiar. Oh, James, or oh, Jeremy, or oh,
Yeah.
insert name. Let me
Yep.
read this. Oh, okay. Oh, they have a lead magnet. Let me just check it out." So this is the power of LinkedIn newsletters from
Yeah.
nurturing.
And just to touch on in your case, Jeremy, I mean, something we covered in the last episode, but is your own newsletter. Jeremy just recently rebuilt a newsletter, a complete fresh one, to start from zero, to showcase the power of them and how quickly you can grow them. I believe he's three
Yeah.
newsletter posts
Three,
in, and
3 or 4.
he's over
Yeah.
200 subscribers,
Yeah.
right? You can't, if you made 3 posts on a company page, you would have maybe one or two, and they're
Yeah.
probably the people you
6
know.
max.
Right, right.
Probably
So
your mom and your cousin and some people you know.
exactly, exactly, right. So the
Yeah.
newsletters are great, but you have to be of value. And the reason Jeremy's is growing is because he's being transparent with the process. He's actually sharing why it's growing, which is helping it grow. And it's a really fun way of doing things. Now, with LinkedIn messaging, this is something that I do all the time. And you can collide these, by the way. So I often share my newsletter posts in my messaging to get them more views, more eyeballs, and keep that subscriber count going up. Don't have LinkedIn kind of try and push it for you. Make it happen. Send it as a message. Create something that's always of value. You know, a free lead magnet, for instance, is very easy to promote in a message. You can just very subtly put a one-liner to say, "Hey, just want to keep. Thought you might find this of value." And allow the post itself to do the talking. So they kind of get in, they subscribe, they view it. Okay, James is pushing this. It's free. I'll check it out. Great. Right.
Yeah.
So there's many, many options there. But LinkedIn messaging is really, really important to keeping, just top of mind. But really with that, you're talking at maximum one message like every 2 weeks. Otherwise, people like simply don't choose to, be connected with you. And the moment you lose that connection, you can't message them any further.
Yeah.
So,
Very,
yeah,
very,
that's kind of it.
very well said.
Messaging. Jeremy, feel free to cover the LinkedIn content. I know this is your specialty by all means, but
Yeah.
yeah, just we have a couple minutes.
Yeah, definitely. So, LinkedIn content, another great way to stay top of mind. I definitely recommend going different routes with it. Or I like to use the word dynamic. So, post your shorts. Recently I just had a short that got 20,000 impressions. People added me. People messaged me through DMs from that post because I looked at the analytics and the date, and I looked at when I got certain ads and messages. Right. So that's really key. You have things like text posts, regular text posts. You have all these things that you want to be sharing um, in order to stay top of mind, in order to be nurtured. And when people engage with your posts, they're more likely to see it again. So
Totally.
it's such a like it's such a system that just gets better and better the more consistent and the more valuable you make your post and your content.
Absolutely. I mean, and perfectly aligned with the newsletter, right? If they see one newsletter post and they subscribe, they will continue to not only get emails, they will also get the content on LinkedIn. But what I also find, just to touch back to the webinars, if they join a webinar, they will see your next post. And that whole process is just keeping them in the loop, keeping them going. And really, LinkedIn can be its own sort of powerhouse, but you do have to stay quite consistent with it. And it is the combination of messaging with content, which is why me and Jeremy do the approaches that we do. For instance, you can't get 20,000 messages in a month. You're not allowed to send that many on LinkedIn. But with a video post like Jeremy just recently did, he had 20,000 eyeballs from a post. So it's the combination of making sure that you're getting that post to the right people that you want to see it, and you can message it to them. But equally, the post itself can really help get extra eyeballs on what you're doing on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Now, lastly, completely separately, is email marketing. The email marketing kind of is its own powerhouse, and you can be way more frequent than you can on LinkedIn. I recommend sending one email every 3 days to new prospects. And that's because we're in the internet space where things move quickly. And ultimately, with us selling marketing, we're competing against everybody else that sells marketing. So if you're in an industry that's very large and very busy, you need to be staying top of mind way more often. Now, the way I do this is I actually do objection-based marketing emails. This is where I have a list of 100, literally made by AI, of all the objections that people may face when buying my service. And that is the premise of every email that I send, and that gets the attention. So recent one, LinkedIn accountant ban is our highest performing subject line because it's the scariest thing you can see.
Yeah.
Right? And it's enough to open and enough to explain how and why our services are built to not have that happen. So again, that's just what I do by email. There's a total world there, and we'll do a dedicated episode for sure on just email marketing. But it's the combination of all of this, which is where you see the most success.
Yeah, that's a powerful tip. Quick thing I'd say about email marketing is use it to nurture your leads that just joined in. So if you have a landing page and they completed that form, make sure you have an email sequence that goes out, maybe talking about your service, and definitely do definitely think about what James just said about objection handling. Definitely that you can share case studies, all that stuff to nurture those people through.
Absolutely. I mean, and something we always say, Jeremy, as well, is to kind of collaborate these efforts. So don't have a super salesy technique done by email and then have all of your objection-based stuff just be on LinkedIn. Make sure the two match themselves, but they're not the same. Make them
just branding.
Yeah, so when they see you, they know what to expect, because, and of course, that saves a tremendous amount of time. You can have one person making your email and you could turn that into content, or you can have someone like Jeremy make your content and turn that into email. It goes both ways. And really, that's where we find the most success with, kind of connecting all the dots and making sure everything stays aligned across these platforms.
Yeah, cool.
Excellent.
Well,
great episode. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and pretty simple, but I feel tons of little powerful tips there, and kind of the process of discovery, but also in how to nurture them with all the different methods that are there. And of course, in future episodes, so feel free to subscribe or even follow along on the next webinar. We'll be diving into actual techniques and strategies on how to do each of these in more detail.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
Good stuff. We'll talk to you guys again.
Yeah. See you in the next one.